Welcome to Frank Staiano Explains. Today's topic is the final year undergraduate project, and I have some rather specific advice for our own third year students, but also some much more broadly applicable advice for all of you, wherever you are, whether you are doing a third year at some other university, whether you're not even planning on writing a project or doing a dissertation, because it's about how to handle the responsibilities you will be facing in your professional life as a computer scientist. So this video I'm publishing now because there is a forthcoming meeting of students with overseers in the next week or two, and so it is time sensitive and it has triggered a schedule change. My original plan was to publish an algorithms video this week, aimed obviously at my first year students, but I'm now speaking instead to the third year students primarily and to a broader audience in general, and I'll leave the algorithms video to next week. So in the detail, the stuff I'm going to talk about is Cambridge specific. The deadlines are the Cambridge deadlines, and the exact structure of our arrangements for the final year project is Cambridge specific, obviously, and it will be different for other universities, but the general principles will be useful to students anywhere they are, and the stuff that's even more wide-reaching beyond that is going to be useful to anyone, even if they're no longer students. So if you think about it in terms of your professional life and more broadly than just your university dissertation, then this is a video pretty much for everyone. Now, as we go into the detail, this video is to help third year students understand what is happening right now, why do we have these meetings with the overseers, and how can you get the most out of them. I think I did another video another time about the how to get the most out of your interaction with overseers, but that was more oriented towards the first meeting you have when you define what your project is about. This one is about the second meeting you have at the middle of the year to see how things are going. And I'm in a position to give you the inside scoop on all that because I am an overseer, and I have also been serving in a variety of other roles. I have been an examiner, and I have been, and I still am, also a project supervisor and a director of studies. So stay until the end of the video to figure out how all this applies to your life in general, even if you're not a third year student at Cambridge. If you find all of this helpful or interesting, then like the video, write your comments under it, and subscribe to the channel for more stuff about computer science. So what is the overall point of doing a final year project in the first place? The point is to bring together and let you showcase everything you've learned in the computer science tripos. We give you responsibility for a non-trivial project. We give you the chance to be in charge, and we also give you the chance to talk about the stuff you've done. You're going to write a report, which is probably going to be the longest thing you've written so far, about your original work. All these are useful skills to acquire in general, and it's nice to have something to wrap up your 3 years here besides just the marks on your exams about coursework. So the undergraduate course is very structured, but gradually we remove some of the structure. There's a lot of structure at the beginning and quite a bit less structure in the end, because by the time you graduate, we want you to be able to, as it were, fly with your own wings. So in the first year, you have to do some courses, you have to attend lectures at certain times, you go to supervisions, you have exams, and so on, and everything is basically predefined for you. In the second year, you still have lectures, but you have some choice about which lectures to concentrate on, which lectures you're going to plan on answering exam questions about in preference to others. You do a group project and so on. In the third year, there's much greater freedom in choosing which lectures to attend, because by then you're going to specialize in a particular area. And then there is this solo project that we were talking about, where for the whole academic year you are in charge of one thing, which is probably the biggest thing you've done up to then. because it's your first project of a certain size, and because there is all that freedom that you didn't have before, the freedom comes with the freedom to screw up. And so we don't want you to be in fear of screwing up, and so we put some safety nets so that whatever happens, there's ways of rescuing false steps. And the overseers are part of this safety net. So at 2 key stages, at the beginning and in the middle, you have to get the okay of the overseers for your project. So it is easy for many students to think of that as a kind of a mini exam. So you're being judged, and the overseers are these pesky nitpickers that find flaws in the great stuff that you've been doing. But it's not a mini exam, and we are not doing this to judge you and give you marks. We're not giving you any marks. We are just there to help you. So where in October you saw the overseers, or you interacted with the overseers to define a project that, if executed well, would give you good marks, and they gave you feedback on whether what you planned on doing, what you promised to do, would, if executed properly, give you good marks or not, because sometimes you have to just completely change what you're planning on doing because it's not suitable for a project. Anyway, whereas in October you did that, now in February, what you do is you produce a progress report, and you must do a presentation about how far you've come. And many students are a bit scared by this and overthink it to an extreme degree, and they may spend 2 or 3 weeks preparing for the meeting with the overseers. That is not a wise thing to do. You will not get any marks from us, as I said, and 2 or 3 weeks are totally wasted on preparing for this meeting. They would be much better invested in making further progress on your project. Despite what you may think, you cannot fail at this overseer meeting. Even if things are going very poorly, you will not fail. You will not get a fail verdict from us. You will just get some help to put things back on track. So the meeting with us is not a big deal in terms of how much you have to prepare for it. We are there to help you. The official specification is that there's some 300 to 500 words that you have to produce. That's not very much. That's a page or two. And you have to do a presentation that should be bounded to something like 5 minutes, which means don't prepare a slide deck with 10 or 15 slides, because you won't have time to even flick the pages. We will just cut you off at the end of the time. So check the computer laboratory website about this progress report meeting for the exact specifications of what you have to do. But the core of the matter is that we want to know, we want to hear what you've done in your own words, but we also want to compare it with where you thought you would be at the time when you defined the project. So how does the place you are at right now compare with what you thought it was going to be back at the start of the year? What have you done? What have you accomplished? How does it differ? And if it differs substantially in a negative sense, in the sense that you're behind schedule, then what are you going to do about it? So the meeting, in the grand scheme of things, is about checking if there's a problem and finding if we can help you fix any problem that might have occurred. If things are going well, okay, well, pat on the back, well done, carry on. And that's fine. That's all there is to it, basically. If things are not going to plan, okay, the main thing is we want to find out now. If things are not going to plan, we want to know. Okay, don't try to hide. Don't try to paper over things that are not working well. We are good at detecting BS. It may sound like this is some Inquisition tribunal where we are digging to see if you're hiding something, and a pretty scary thing. But it's actually really the opposite. As I said many times by now, it's a support structure. We've given you a lot to do. We've given you a lot of freedom. And there's really many ways that things could go wrong despite best intentions. And for almost everyone, something goes wrong. For some people, something minor. For some people, something a bit less minor. For some people, it's something rather major that goes wrong. And first of all, we want you to gain awareness of really where you are. You and I all know that you are all overachievers, otherwise you wouldn't even have been admitted to Cambridge in the first place. So it is to be expected that you will be ashamed of anything that you've done in your project that is less than absolutely perfect. You will be concerned if you are somewhat behind, slightly behind, maybe quite a bit behind, because you will be aware of high expectations that people have on you. You should do everything great and so on and so on. But you haven't, and you'd rather people didn't see it so clearly, because it will make you feel bad. Now, this session gives you some calibration. Okay, where is everyone else? Everyone else is an overachiever, but maybe everyone else has had trouble like you've had, and maybe there are other people who are also somewhat behind, and maybe it's not as bad for you as it is for some of your colleagues. So you see the presentations of the others, and you put it into context, what's been happening to you. I mean, it's not to say that everybody has trouble, but it is to say that what may seem like, oh, and everybody is perfect except me, may not actually be reality. And you may see a variety of ways in which other people have had to readjust their course, and it's not as big a deal as you maybe were making it out to yourself while you were pretending that nothing was happening to the outside world. So it gives you a feeling for how you're doing, for how other people are coping with stuff. It gives you a feeling for how amazing everybody's project is. I mean, what is special in one dimension, special in some other dimension, and also what's amazing about your thing. Maybe you find, after all, well, my thing is rather better than this and this in under these aspects, and so I shouldn't feel so depressed about the stuff that has been going badly, because a variety of things I've done have actually gone well. So compare yourself to others. That's always useful. Now, we as overseers are especially there to help those who are behind schedule, and we help them, first of all, we help them find out that they are. So maybe they have been hiding from their project supervisor and even from themselves that they are behind. Okay, after all, well, it's still only early days. It's not so bad now. Yes, I'm behind, but I could recover. I mean, let's postpone and procrastinate it for a few months before we really worry about it. But the difference is that if you admit it to yourself now that you are behind, that there is a problem, then now there is still time to address the issues and come out with something that still turns out as a great project in the end. You can still recover now. This is not so in 2 or 3 months if you only come out about the problems then, because then there will not be much time to change course. What's done is done. What hasn't been done, and that's basically it. You have to take it as it is. So each of you only has 10 minutes with us, with the overseers. The fact that the event is planned, the event is in the calendar, just that fact on its own is a chance for you to ask yourself in preparation for the event, am I behind? If I speak truthfully to myself, am I behind? If I decide I am behind, well, by how much am I behind? Is it by a week? That's nothing to talk about, but 2 weeks? It's recoverable. If it starts to be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months behind, then that's actually serious. So assess, is this being behind something that's dangerous? Is it seriously dangerous? Will you be able to do everything you promised you would do? If you're behind by 1 or 2 weeks, probably yes. If you're behind by 1 or 2 months, probably no. You'll have to drop something, and then it's important to decide the right thing to drop. And it's also important to assess, after having dropped that thing, if the project still makes sense, if the project still is worthy of appreciation from the examiners. Will you be able to deliver a good project if you take remedial actions as you should and drop something that it is not feasible to deliver in the time left, given how far behind you are? Will you have enough good stuff that you can talk about? in your dissertation and it still looks like a decent project. Well, think about it. Think about it before you meet us. Don't run away from the problem because it won't solve itself. So don't try to slip under the radar when you meet us, because all you will achieve is you will miss your chance of being helped by us. If you are going to be scared because something went wrong, and at some point you'll have to face reality and be scared, and it's much better if you are scared now. If you're going to be scared now. Why? Because now there is still time and scope to fix things, and our purpose is not to punish you, to give you a fee for being late, or to shame you. And if you feel the shame of discussing this with the group of 10 people of your peers, then you can also ask to talk to us privately. You can write to the overseer and say, well, I have a problem, can you help me with that? Can we talk about it before or after the meeting with everybody else? And we can deal with that. So our purpose is to help you get back on track. And the best outcome of this meeting, if you are in the situation where you are actually behind schedule, would be if this meeting helps you realize and admit to yourself that, oh shit, I'm actually really behind. Let me talk with my supervisor. You say to yourself in your head, let me talk with my supervisor before I meet those overseers. What can I do? I could drop this, I could rearrange that. Does my supervisor think it's a good idea? Does my supervisor have any other suggestion what I could do? Here's a new plan. Okay, I've come up with a new plan. Then you come to us, the overseers, and say, I've had some trouble, okay, but I'm a grown-up and I've come up with a new plan with the help of my supervisor. What do you think of my new plan? With this, I reckon I could get back on track by the end of February. And then I can do my evaluation and start writing up and so on. What do you think? And then the overseers have material to help you, because we can then see, yes, well, we see this revised project, well done for coming up with some way of getting out of this hole. But speaking honestly, the thing you're going to do instead doesn't look anywhere near as impressive as the thing you originally promised. So maybe before you might have got 70 or 80, and now this only looks like it's worth 50 or 60. So if you're still hoping to get something in the region of the 70s, if not the 80s, then you should add something else. And so we can help you look at your new proposal with the eyes of a neutral examiner who is not invested in your project, because of course your project supervisor likes you, likes the project, has invested lots of time until now on the project, and so will be super keen about stuff, and maybe has rosy glasses and is optimistic about the prospects of your revised plans, whereas we overseers are, just neutral about it, and we can just objectively say, yeah, well, it's very good that you have an alternative, but it doesn't look as impressive. Or we can say, this alternative looks fine. In fact, yeah, it's just as valuable a project, even though it goes in a different direction as the one you originally submitted. You can still get a good result of this. And it's good to have this independent opinion on your plan, which you can only get if you come to us with a plan. If you come to us hiding that you are behind, and we discover live, oh, actually, you are behind, what are you going to do about it? Then it's still a useful result, obviously, compared to just keeping it under wraps until it's too late to do something about it, but you won't get the benefit of a second opinion on your plan. Anyway, try to get the most value out of this meeting with the overseers, and I would reckon the greatest value is this sanity check, which we can do if you've already started on an alternative plan to remedy the fact that you are behind. That is in case you are behind. So if you are behind in the presentation, don't waste any time explaining or justifying why you were behind, why it was so difficult to this and that. And so I'm sure you have plenty of good reasons why you're behind, but we don't care. And neither should you care. Okay, it's already done. You are behind schedule. The point is not to absolve you from guilt. Okay, well, you've done all these bad things, but it's okay. That's not what this meeting is for. This meeting is to help you fix things and go forward. Okay, it's a constructive, positive way of approaching the problem by solving it, not by dwelling on the past and seeing whether it was right or wrong. So we don't care. It's happened. Let's see how we can sort things out. And we are there to help you do that. Now, I've spoken a lot about the case of people who are behind schedule, but not everybody who comes to this overseer meeting is behind schedule. In fact, I trust quite a few of you won't be. Okay, and if you're not behind, great. Well done for keeping the schedule. If you're even ahead of schedule, even better. Well done to you. Is the meeting going to be a waste of time for you while we interact with the people who are behind and try to help them? Well, I hope it is not a waste of time for you, and you won't see it as such. First of all, you also get the benefit of calibrating against what your peers are doing. Are you ahead because what you did was perhaps a little easier than what other people have been doing who have been encountering stumbling blocks and working with unreliable hardware that doesn't behave as the specifications say, whereas you just did everything from zero in your editor, and it's all things you had total control over, and therefore you have an easier life. So understand why they're behind and you're not behind. Understand the scope of what everybody has been doing. How does it compare to yours? Just see what the variety of other projects looks like, how ambitious were the various projects, and so on. And it can go in any direction, and everything's fine, but it's good to have this awareness to also set your expectations on what the marks would be. Of course, someone who encounters difficulties on something that is inherently very difficult, it will be judged differently from someone who encounters difficulty on something that looked trivial to do. So another useful point for you about this meeting, if you don't have any problems about being behind schedule, in fact you're doing fine, is that it still is a chance for you to learn and practice the very useful skill of describing something complex, your project, to some intelligent non-expert, the overseer, in some understandable way. This is a useful skill to develop. The projects that you lot to do span anything from a very broad spectrum that goes from, I don't know, how to control teams of robots, interactive teams of robots, to TCP/IP congestion, to sentiment analysis in Twitter feeds, and cryptocurrencies and blockchain primitives, and monads in functional programming, and the most abstruse topics in computer science you can think of. There will be someone doing a project on it. Okay, so most senior computer science people of the kind who would be your overseers will be expert in one or two of these, but will know very little about all the others. So when you explain what you've done to them, it has to be clearly understandable by someone who's intelligent, knowledgeable about computer science, but doesn't know anything about your subject. Okay, and it's important that you be able to explain things well and enticingly to someone who doesn't know about your subject, to someone who doesn't know what are the unsolved problems in your subject, someone who doesn't know what people in your subject are excited about. So what is the most important thing you have achieved in your project? Removing the buzzwords. What is the core intellectual nugget of what's important about what you've done? And then explain to me, why is it important? What benefits come from the fact that you've done that thing? What benefits come to whom? Okay? Is it something that, the people in your research group would be able to do X? Is it the case that, everybody who works in this field in the world will be able to do X? Is it the case that all the consumers in the world who are not, doing any research in your field or anything, is it just benefit from the stuff you've come up with? In which way do they benefit? And is there societal, economic, whatever advantage for the world, scientific, anything, in the fact that you've done that? And can you summarize all that in just a couple of minutes, please? So that's of course a tall order, but that's what is known in the trade as the elevator pitch. Elevator, because the story goes, at some point you're going to be in Silicon Valley or something, in some elevator, in a tall building, and the elevator ride lasts a few tens of seconds, and in that elevator there is also some big capitalist with a wallet brimming with millions of dollars, and before they get off at their floor, you must have impressed them enough with your chit chat about the cool stuff you're doing that they decide to put some of these extra millions they have into your startup so that you can actually take off. Well, if you get good at the elevator pitch, it can be a life-changing skill, because you will be able to catch these opportunities that may fly past, but not very often. It's not like, every day you ride the elevator and there's another person that you could give the pitch to. It's a once only chance that you get, and unless you catch it that day, then you will just be missed. So it's one skill to be technically good at the computer science thing that you do. The particular section of computer science that you become expert at, and you're good at that. Now, that's one thing. But it's a rather separate thing to be good at catching the opportunities when they fly past your nose. Being ready, okay? Because these opportunities don't come often, and you will experience the situation where you see someone who is more or less like you, or maybe not quite as good as you in your opinion, but they got some kind of lucky break. They got lucky and they made it big, and you never did, and you feel in your resentful mind that you deserved it more than they did. So why did they got very successful, very rich and so on, and you didn't? It's unfair. Life is unfair. Well, everyone who is successful has experienced some amount of luck. Okay, the success is partly built on luck to some extent. However, the people who are consistently successful are actually, if you look behind the scenes, why are they successful, are the ones who prepare for these opportunities. Okay, so it's important, if you want to be successful in whatever criterion you use to measure success, that you also put in the work to be ready for opportunities. It's not enough just to be good. You also have to be proactive about going for it. So the stuff I've described about the overseer process applies to you very directly if you are one of our third-year students in the computer science Tripos who is about to submit the project report, and we're going to have a meeting next week or the week after. But even if you're not in that very narrow category, then most of what I'm saying now actually still applies to you anyway, because essentially life is fractal. So the final year project that is being done at Cambridge in the third year, blah, 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 is like a miniature version of almost everything that will happen to you in your professional life, even if you're not at Cambridge, even if you're not at university now, and so on and so on, because it's all related, it's all connected. And yeah, being able to catch the opportunities when they come is really important. So this is a useful skill to cultivate, and I like to finish off on a quote from one of my great mentors, Sir Andy Hopper, who's been my boss for decades and whom I love to death and from whom I've learned many things. So in the early days, before I was even at the university, we had some success with the company. I can't remember exactly what the topic was, but we were at the pub celebrating with a bunch of people from the company, and Andy said, it's been going well, and certainly we've been lucky, but sometimes we make our own luck.